Thank you so much for being here, Lynn Morales, naturopath, wonderful person you are. Can you do us a favor and just briefly introduce yourself and your background in healthcare?
Sure, and thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's a pleasure knowing you for a few years now.
Yes.
Well, again, thanks for having me here. I actually am the daughter of a registered nurse and a general surgeon. So my background in the healthcare field goes to the very beginning. I used to go with Dad to do rounds at the hospital. He even let me watch him do surgery once or twice till I kept losing it, and so he decided surgery wasn't for me.
That's fascinating. I don't know if I could have done that.
But that was my interest always. Actually, it was to be a veterinarian first, and then I decided not to be a veterinarian because I was always the kid who stayed between the lines. And my grandma, who is from my stepfather's side of the family, she was a nurse, and she was old school, very old school. Grew up in an orphanage. And she said to me one day when I was about 8, why would you put so much time into school to help animals when you could help people? And I thought, oh, yes, you're right. Why would I do that? Okay, yeah. So I stayed between the lines, listened to that advice, planned to now be a medical doctor. Only to get ready to go off to school, and my dad just begged me, please don't become a medical doctor.
Interesting.
And I said, but Dad, that's what I think I'm supposed to do. I think that's my purpose. And he said, no, I don't want you to be a medical doctor. He said, I think that you should do something different. And I said, but why? And he said, because I don't do well with the insurance companies, and they're not nice, and I don't get paid by them, and they've made the industry a very difficult place to be. And I said, oh, and he was an old dog, right? Old doctor. And he's like, I don't like nurses at an insurance company telling me if I can do a surgery or not. They don't know. I saw the patient, they didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, just like before, I listened to advice. And so I decided I wasn't going to be a doctor. And so I went off to school to study business instead. And when I graduated from school and got my first job, I said, Dad, they got me a job. And he said, great. Who are you working for? And I told him, one of the big health insurance companies. And my dad looked at me and said, you're going to work for the enemy? I put you through college so you could work for the enemy?
Oh no.
And I said, yeah, I guess so. But I was very good at what I did. My very first job was actually a provider relations representative. So what that was is the person who was the liaison between the insurance company and the doctor network.
Interesting. So you were the person that he needed.
I was the person my dad needed. And because I understood Dad's pain of emotional pain of being a doctor trying to help but being told I can't do this test or I can't do this surgery, but yet that's what I think they need. It made me very relatable to those doctors. Very relatable. And so they embraced me because that's something they do in the medical world. You're the daughter of a doctor. Oh, okay. Free services for you. It's professional courtesy. And so they really appreciated me because I really understood what they were going through. And that made me better at what I did. And then so I excelled in that career and spent 27 years in that healthcare insurance role.
Wow.
And that framed who I am today. I was very good at project management. I did a lot of that, did a lot of compliance. But most importantly, what I learned, having to work with the corporate office on a regular basis. In fact, my entire 26 of my 27 years was all corporate based. And what that meant is I reported to headquarters. And basically what we did is I started to see early on, and this is key to where I am today. I started to see early on, and I didn't know why, because I had no interest in natural therapies so much yet, but my own health took me down that journey where I suddenly was having some health issues at a young age. Mid to late 20s, and people were saying, well, you're just getting old. And I'm like, but I'm only 28. I don't understand. Is that old?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Yeah. And so what started to happen is I started to experience a different healthcare world, and I started to realize that my body could tell me things, and my doctor, my more natural therapies doctor, that I didn't know and didn't tell him. And so I thought that was kind of strange. And so, but I was intrigued. And so that's when I learned the body could do an awful lot to heal itself. And so at that point in time, I started to go down the path of I was very interested in what could my body tell me what's going on with it, which is what launched my naturopathy career. And it actually was way back in 2003 when this all happened.
Wow.
And so it helped me when my dad got sick with cancer and ended up dying 3 months later. But I had a really big revolutionary moment with his time in that hospital when he was in University of Pennsylvania, where one of my half-sisters was a cancer research student. And she is now a veterinarian, so that tells you how she felt about the cancer industry when she left it.
Sure.
And what I watched was that I really blossomed in helping my dad feel better with my natural therapies. In minutes, he was seeing results of things that I was able to help him with.
Wow.
So that whole moment, that time, and then the time I spent in corporate healthcare, I started to see that people did not really get how to get healthy. And so they started to move down a path of tracking their steps to disease management instead of actually knowing what to do to pass metabolic syndrome testing. How do you actually get well? And so I started to do that with my colleagues at my corporate healthcare job, and started to help them show results before and after in 3 and 4 weeks time, where they could start to do some excelling with their health and pass those tests so that their premiums wouldn't increase.
Right.
So that's really what shaped who I am today. And then when I started to work for the chief medical officer of this healthcare company, I started to realize how important research was to the medical world. They had to see research, evidence-based proven things. And that was drilled in my head, working in the chief medical officer's office, in the CMO's office, where we had to have research to back up everything. And so that shaped who I was. And that's when I learned through hard knocks that I had to have a lot of research to support the technologies that I was promoting, whether that be nutritional, nutraceutical technologies, or it be more, technology like red light therapies and things that we'll talk about.
Wonderful. Well, that's amazing. I think that, personal experience says a lot, and it really does, of course, shape who we are as people, but to have that shape who, to have that story shape your purpose and how you move forward is really, really intriguing and important to note. So let's talk about incorporating technology. So you are a top technology health practitioner in the changing life and destiny world. So you're at the forefront of integrating these technologies and these cutting edge pieces of devices that can help in so many ways in your practice. So can you highlight some of those innovations?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do would be maybe to highlight what we call our 360 process.
Okay.
And so again, it's a combination of different technologies. So one of them is we call it your WICO score. It's like it's like your FICO for health. And so literally people do not understand their lab work today. They get a bunch of H's and L's on their labs. Their doctor spends 35 seconds on the phone with them, says, here's some prescriptions, change your diet, and come back in 6 to 12 months and we'll see if you pass the test.
Not to mention where are those levels coming from? Who's making up those levels? And so,
right. Yeah, they just seem to be changing a little at times.
Yeah.
I just had that happen this week with a client who was completely in range on her cholesterol, but actually was prescribed a statin and didn't understand why, and called and asked me why, and I said, well, I didn't prescribe it.
Right. So back to the WICO.
Yeah. So back to the WICO. So the WICO is a very detailed questionnaire of 15 functional health markers. So what we're doing is we're actually giving people like a credit score for health. So if you think of your credit score in your mind right now, Stephanie, don't tell me I don't want to know it.
Yeah.
But think of your credit score, right? And then if you imagine, let's say, that credit score means you're getting the refinance or you're getting the new car, right? Those kind of things. So people get that in their day to day.
Right.
When you get told that your health score is now lower than your credit score, you got an instant visual.
Right. That makes sense.
And then those 15 functional health markers, we're looking at things like cardiac, kidney, endocrine support, thyroid, digestion, food intolerances. One of the things that's happening in that review is it's basically like I'm more than like primary care to somebody. I'm covering like 5 and 6 specialties, other specialists in that review, where I can show that person the changes, what's going on with their health, and it gives me that baseline. And then what we do is we put them through our 360 process, and one of the steps is something we call Transformations 360, and we call it T360 for short, and that's a nutrition plan. It's a light keto plan, but what we're doing is we're teaching them lifestyle changes. We're teaching them why in corporate, which I used to do, you're not sitting there all day on the phone, on conference calls, even if you're work at home, and you forgot to take a pee break, or you forgot to eat. Or you're guilty because you don't have to be in traffic for an hour. And so now you get online at 6:30 a.m. because you report to the East Coast. And then, but you got to talk to the West Coast people, so you're on till 9 o'clock at night. Because that's the expectation. Right? And so we're teaching people conscious eating. We're teaching people lifestyle changes. We're teaching people how to make sure that they are not going down a path of driving with, while they're eating and having the stressful moments for their digestion and things like that. And that's what we're teaching them, so that there's no yo-yo dieting in the future. We're teaching you lifestyle changes. And so as we move through that health process, what we call the 360 process, we then, after 5 weeks, I'll give you an example of this in a moment, we reevaluate them. So remember I said, what does the primary do? You go to the primary, you get told, change your diet, take these meds, come back in 6 to 12 months. People don't have 6 to 12 months. Life's too short. We're showing people how to turn their health around in 5 weeks. They will see a change in their health score. I know that. And that's the difference. And that's what I was doing back in the corporate world. When I was showing my colleagues, let's change your diet and you'll pass that blood test without a problem. Right. And so that's part of it. Then we bring in the other technologies. The other technologies are things like, we put them on like red light therapy, which is phenomenal. Over 3,000 research studies. Thank you, corporate healthcare job, to teach me about research. Over 3,000 research studies to evidence-based proven of the amazing properties of that therapy, created for NASA astronauts to recover from space. So if it's good enough for NASA, right, it should be good enough for the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
Right? So reducing pain, reducing inflammation, all of that. That's what we do with that. And it actually helps the cells release toxins. And then we move them into a process we call Circulation 360, or C360 for short. What's that doing? That's starting to increase microcirculation throughout the body. So now I got these toxins moving, right? Or I got them released. Well, I better get them moving and out of the system, right? And we also use things like ionic foot baths to help people get that out. Through the feet. They start to have these toxins come out. And then the next stage of that process is taking them through what we call Lymph 360. And that is a phenomenal tool. Now, most people don't know this, Stephanie. The lymphatic system's the garbage can of the body. It's where not only physical toxins reside, which we will see if their lymphatic is blocked through the red 360 process, the red 360. We will see if they don't have immediate inch loss off the red 360 where the cell's released, we know there's lymphatic blockage. It could be, it could be blocked from any kind of a scar tissue. How many people have had surgeries? And everybody tells me, well, that was when I was 22. It don't matter.
There's the scar tissue still there.
My dad was a great surgeon, but when the body's trying to heal, sometimes it goes like this and sometimes it goes like that. And it gets all knotted up. And why is that? Could be emotional stuff going on in your life at the time of that surgery. Right? How many ladies have a hysterectomy and have a lot of emotion? They go through that process.
I would say all.
That's a really emotional thing, right? So in the Lymph 360 process, what we're doing is we put that person on, you ever seen compression boots in a hospital?
Yes. That makes sense.
So this suit is compression and heat red light therapy built into it.
Wow.
So it's these big pads we put on you, and it's compression boots, legs, arms, abdomen, and back.
Wow.
And here's the cool thing. Each area is individually controlled,
Okay.
and each for compression and heat. And so what happens is it's like we're moving the toxins in the lymphatic system, again, the garbage can of the body.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving it to the lymphatic drainage points, and there's 4 of them, 2 in the groin, 2 in the upper body. And so what we're doing is we're moving those toxins through in the order the body wants to dump it.
Ah.
It wants to bring it up to this top left quadrant. That's where it's trying to dump everything.
Got it.
So as we take them through this process, right, they see, again, research we have on this, right? We did it with first responders. People are seeing improvements in sleep, reduction in stress, because here's the main thing. As they went through that process, we were moving toxins. And now what's happening is they probably have to urinate a whole lot afterwards,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
But they start to feel, emotionally they start to feel fresher, right? They have clearer thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? They sleep better. And in our study, first responders did 1 a week for 3 weeks, then they went month to month. Now that's some stressed out people.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Extremely.
And what they did is they saw 45% improvement in sleep, 39% reduction in stress. Now that's cool.
Yeah.
And how many people are stressed right now in our world?
I'd say all.
Yeah. You're right.
All people.
It is.
Yeah.
All people. And it's hit since COVID,
Yeah.
right? That's what really made people get stressed. And now we get stressed about the weather. Oh my gosh, it might rain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's not raining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it might be hot in Texas in August. Well, darn.
Yeah.
Isn't it always hot in Texas in August?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And so the point is, people are less resilient. And what we're using Lymph 360 to do is to help people become more resilient. And we're actually built stress management packages around that.
Wow.
That machine and that technology all by itself.
Wow, that's amazing.
So and then the last part of our 360 process is what we call Relief 360. This is an amazing little tool. It could be viewed as a TENS unit on steroids, but that is total underestimation.
Okay.
Because a TENS unit is just blocking the signal to the brain. This particular piece of equipment has over 1 million frequencies available to it for healing.
Wow.
It's got like a TENS unit setting, but also a microcurrent setting. So while it's FDA approved for pain and wound healing, we actually use it for many, many, many off-label uses, and I'm talking hundreds. We've
Right.
used it successfully for Parkinson's people to help them improve. We've used it successfully for bladder incontinence, for stroke paralysis.
Wow.
We've used it in a lot of instances like that. And what we're finding is that this little piece of equipment is something that I believe every household needs. And we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But for less than their annual deductible for insurance, they can have one of these in their home and help the whole family. Now that's a good
Yeah.
use of a family deductible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so then let's talk about some stories. You mentioned this a little bit before, but is there a memorable story or a specific case where these technologies really played a pivotal role in someone's health journey?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that just happened this year is we had a lady come through our practice. Her name is Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah was diabetic. Sarah was in fibromyalgia pain every day.
Oh gosh.
And she needed to lose weight. So she came through our red light process, which is where she saw an ad to learn more about how she could have inch loss in a 20-minute session.
Wow.
Which is what we do.
Right.
Everybody has inch loss in that 20-minute session. Some might be small.
Well, and like what you were saying is that if they don't, then that's an indication for you as a practice to work on their lymphatic system.
Beautiful.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That means something's off
I'm learning something.
in their system. Oh, you're doing a great job. So we've had people, lose a small amount, like 1 inch,
Mm-hmm.
but we've had some people lose 9
Wow.
in one 20-minute session.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
And you're surprised at who loses it. Some people, have it to lose, and others are like, really? Where did we find 9 inches off of you?
Right.
But that's the incredible thing about it. But let me tell you what happened with her.
Yes.
This particular lady, remember I told you about the WICO?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so she did her health assessment. Now get your credit score in your head. Everybody listen, get your credit score in your head. Okay. Now her WICO, her credit for health score, right? 548.
That's not a good score.
Yeah. What does that mean in FICO land?
In FICO land, that means you're not getting qualified for most things.
You got it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in her case, she was like, oh, like it was worse than she thought.
Right.
We put her then in our 360 process, we put her on the T360, the nutrition plan.
Okay.
For 5 weeks.
Okay.
What did I say earlier? Her doctor said, do this
in 6 months.
6 to 12 months, come back and let's see if you pass the test.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I view it as a practitioner, I'm passing the test with you.
Yeah.
We're both being tested.
Yeah.
You know, I remember in corporate healthcare, I got paid for performance.
Interesting.
Working for the healthcare company.
Right.
Interesting. I saw that we didn't necessarily have to have a performance track record to help bring healthcare costs down necessarily.
Right.
Now maybe it was when if they shifted to a different company, maybe they felt like, yeah, you just aren't cutting it. But interesting concept, right?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I feel like I'm being tested at the same time. My T360 is being tested at the same time.
Right.
So we took her through that process, and after 5 weeks of being on our program, we reevaluated her. How do we do that? She retook the WICO.
Okay.
She and I got on the phone. Do you want to guess? Just take a guess what her score was.
Okay, in 5 weeks. I mean, you can't really raise your FICO score that quickly, if at all, in 5 weeks. So I can't imagine that it was too much higher. I mean, I don't know, a couple of...
She was 548. So
548, I don't know, 650 maybe?
650, yeah.
Maybe?
Which would be a good increase for anybody's credit score in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
No, she was at a 728.
Whoa, daddy.
Yeah, in 5 weeks.
Wow.
But let me tell you the best part of her story. There's a lot to hear here.
Yeah.
Number one, her doctor decided to test me.
Oh, yes, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And did blood work.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually good for you, right?
If it turned out okay.
If it turned out okay.
Right. She was stamped no longer a diabetic.
That's very good for everybody. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you what the National Institutes of Health has to say about that, the NIH. Okay. The average person, now a lot of people out there have health insurance.
Right.
The average person pays a lot for their health insurance on top of then they have a heavy deductible.
Right.
And you have a heavy deductible if you're one of those people who really is just there for, catastrophic issues.
Right.
But they really want to do wellness.
Right.
And that's part of where we're going. And we'll talk about that in the next segment, right?
Cool.
Where are we going with these technologies? So let me explain what happened. The average diabetic will spend $4,800 per year, according to the NIH, out of pocket with their insurance. And still get to be a diabetic. So they're paying
insurance and still get to be a diabetic. Geez, they're paying their insurance, they're paying their deductible, and then they're paying this $4,800.
Yeah, and that's for their co-pays, that's for their prescriptions, that's what that's about.
And they still get to be yay!
And I think that's extremely conservative. I just came off going to a wound care conference. It'll be much more challenging in the future when diabetics get out of control and it leads to wounds.
Oh, yeah.
That could be months, even a years long journey.
Because that's adding another layer.
A whole nother layer.
Oh, wow.
And I'm learning that perhaps the standard, there's not a great standard in what is the way to address the wound? What's the right way, right? And that's what we'll talk about, some of these technologies and how that can help this diabetic surge that's coming. So again, it's teeing you up. Right, got you in suspense, right, for what's coming, where we're going with healthcare, right? Yeah. So the next part of Sarah's story, though, is this. Do you remember she was in fibromyalgia pain?
Yeah.
She was completely out of it.
Out of pain in 5 weeks.
Out of pain in 5 weeks.
Wow.
Can I tell you what the NIH, National Institute of Health, here in our country has to say about that?
What's that?
She will spend, over the course of 4 years, up to $16,000 out of pocket with her insurance and still be in pain.
That does not sound like a good use of money.
No. So let me explain what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
For approximately, well, I won't even say, because I have learned I do need to raise my rates right now. Gonna say.
Right.
Let's just leave it at this. Over 5 years, Sarah, provided she stays the course with what we taught her, oh, by the way, she lost 22 pounds.
Oh, just off the cuff. Wow.
Yeah.
So no more pain, lost 22 pounds.
Yeah.
No longer a diabetic.
Correct.
And what were you going to say?
Over the course of 5 years with those 2 disease categories, thank you, corporate healthcare, for helping me summarize this. She will actually spend, according to the research, approximately $39,000 out of pocket over those 5 years if we didn't intervene and help her.
So you saved her $39,000. And you got her out of pain, and you helped her lose weight, and she's no longer diabetic.
That's true.
Wow. That's a big story right there.
Yeah.
Way to go, Sarah. Way to go, you. That's amazing.
Way to go.
Way to go,
Al,
process. Way to go,
life and destiny.
Way to go, technology.
Yes. That's right.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's look ahead a little bit. So what is your vision? Because we're talking a lot about what, you're talking about the next wave and what's coming. So what is your vision for the future of healthcare, especially with these integration of these technologies?
Yeah.
What do you see?
So one of the things I saw in corporate healthcare is that corporate wellness programs weren't really cutting it. I didn't know that's what I was seeing, but I had this inkling. I was being shown something was wrong. And so what I realized is that what if we took these technologies? What if we took a tool like the Relief 360 tool I'm talking about, that's FDA cleared for pain, as a pain device.
Right.
And it's actually providing healing on a microcurrent level. It provides it at a cellular level. This is not just, let me keep you out of pain.
So this is doing way more.
Yeah, let me help you with wound care. Let's go back to the diabetic concern that we all have for our country. Let's take that tool, right? And what if we put it in the hands of the consumer? What if the consumers had access to this? What if they could use their HSA, which they can, their health savings account, to purchase one of these for their home for less than the cost of their family deductible? One-time purchase for less than the cost of their family deductible. And they could have that tool in their home that could be there for many different off-label uses. I just gave you a few. Right? There is a gigantic book full of protocols.
And is it easy for a consumer to use?
Super easy to use, right? It's just dialing up numbers because all the frequencies for the microcurrent are pre-programmed. So it's more or less looking up an alphabetical order list and coming up with what you need. So imagine if that could be in the home and that all family members, one machine, all family members
can use it.
Wow. And using a health savings account, or there are payment plans to get it, but you do have to get it through, either with a prescription or you get it, we have methods to help people purchase one so that they can use it in their home. And so the cool thing is, what if we put technologies, the more affordable ones, in the home directly? Because let me tell you what I learned at that conference, that wound care conference. Because there is going to be a shortage of healthcare workers. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
It's already happened. It happened with COVID.
Yeah.
Shortage of healthcare workers, but now we have a diabetes population coming bigger than what we already had. Okay? So think about this. The tools are, how do we train you as a spouse?
Right.
To become the new helper.
Right.
How do you help that wound every day? Because home health's going to bring you by once a week, roughly, to change out things, right, on that wound.
That just speeds up the whole process of healing.
Absolutely. We're seeing, there's research that shows 250 to 400% faster healing of a wound with the microcurrent technology provided.
That's
along
huge.
With others. Now, I have my own personal case study, not me personally, but one of my clients, where in 2.5 weeks, She had a case of cellulitis. Her one leg was much bigger than the other. She wanted to travel to get some health care that she wanted to use for her own health. She needed to be able to be travel ready. One of the nurses looked at her leg and said to me, she's going to lose that leg if you don't do something.
Oh my goodness.
And so the only technology that was used was this device I'm talking to you about. And in 2.5 weeks, she was travel ready, and that leg was the same size as the other.
Wow.
So that's an example of where we could go with healthcare. So equip the consumer with what they need,
Right.
but then have people go to local Changing Life and Destiny expos, local, or come to the big conference that we do in April. And what happens is, as they come to that, they see the technologies that other HPs like myself, we're a clinic, model clinic for what we're going to build around the country. Other HPs have these technologies available where the consumer gets to try it at the conference and go, wow, I maybe can't afford that $50,000 piece of equipment, but there's a doctor here in town who's got it. That's phenomenal.
Or that's where they get to try this other piece of equipment that you're saying is less than their deductible.
Absolutely.
And be educated about all of these pieces of technology too.
Right.
And educated about the other options that there are. That's fantastic. Okay. Well, I'll go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Changing Life and Destiny conference, right?
Yeah.
That's held in April. What's so amazing about that is it's multiple audiences. You aren't going to see anything like that. And so you're going to have the consumer come in, and then you're going to have practitioners come in, and then of course you've got all these vendors featuring these amazing new technologies. And what happens is these vendors say, sign me back up for next year because you brought in a smarter consumer. You brought in someone who really wanted help. You know, the people that move the fastest in my program are the ones that had the life-changing event.
Yes.
The people who had the heart attacks. I have a couple couples right now in my practice where one couple both had heart attacks in the same year.
Oh my goodness.
Since this COVID scenario has happened, right? And in the other one, it was one of them, right? But the point is, we're taking them through a process where they had a life-changing event and changing life and destiny.
Right.
Huge.
It all comes together. Well, and you're equipping these people who had a life-changing event with the education and the tools and the technologies to actually do something for themselves.
Right.
Beyond just sit and wait.
Right.
For something else bad to happen.
Right.
That is huge. That
and
is huge.
I tell you what, I just heard from a client the other night who went to our Changing Life and Destiny Expo. Again, these are the mini versions of the larger conference. And what she said was, I'm so excited about where you all are taking our country, where you all are going with this message.
Wow.
Because when you see that 360 process laid out, and you'll be able to see that on my website, when you see that laid out, you start to understand the mission,
right,
and where we're going, and what we're trying to help.
Right. So it's a true system that people can put themselves through and empower themselves for their next step of health. Amazing. Well, not that I want to stop this at all, because I think this is fascinating, but for those who are listening that are intrigued by these possibilities and maybe have had their own life-changing event themselves and want to get a hold of you, how can they reach out to you or book an appointment with you?
Sure. Best way there's two ways. One would be our website, which will have our number on it, which is accesscompletewellness.com.
Awesome.
I want to tell you about that name.
Yes.
Back when I was a little frustrated in my healthcare career, after I had met with the president of the healthcare company I worked for, who took his own son to Mexico for treatment for cancer, took his own son, got his own son medication from Austria that wasn't available in our country to help his son, who took his own son to the hospital and did a guided visualization kidney transplant for his son.
Ooh, that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, wow.
I want you to hear that.
Wow.
I hope everybody heard that.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm going. After my opportunity to have that 30 minutes with that very special man, who I think was very special because he was very open to possibilities. I realized that some of the medical community within my healthcare company were not ready for me.
Okay.
And I started a company called Access Corporate Wellness.
Okay.
In about 2008.
Wow.
Because I knew that one day I'd meet Al. And that we would have to have a corporate wellness program. And so what I want you to know is that Access Corporate Wellness then changed to Access Complete Wellness.
Got it.
But the corporate wellness stayed off to the side, which I reignited last week because of some new developments that I see happening.
Okay.
And so Access Corporate Wellness will be coming soon again. But accesscompletewellness.com, accesscompletewellness.com, that's our website today.
Okay.
And our phone number is another way to book an appointment, and that's 972-712-0892.
Awesome. Fantastic. Lynn Morales, it has been a pleasure.
Well, I
talk to you
thoroughly
today.
enjoyed it. I've loved knowing you for the just few years I do.
Yes.
And I feel like we are going to be longtime friends.
There's
for a
not
very
only
long time.
that, but there's going to be some changes coming. We're helping to make a difference in the world.
That's right.
Wonderful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.